We also wanted to get to something. So one of the things that Mark Carney has been doing, and he's continued to do right here in all of these by-elections, is he has continued to not really respect democracy within the Liberal Party of Canada.
Shocker.
Ladies and gentlemen, 3 by-elections are coming. I am not intentionally speaking like William Shatner. 3 by-elections set for August 31st in Ontario, BC, Quebec ridings, Carney announces. Prime Minister Mark Carney is hoping to shore up his government's slim majority by calling 3 by-elections before the House of Commons resumes this fall, including a Quebec seat that the Liberals will seek to flip from the Conservatives. In a news release Sunday, the Prime Minister announced that by-elections will be held August 31st in the British Columbia riding of North Vancouver-Capilano, the Toronto seat of Beaches East York, and Chicoutimi-Lafjord in Quebec's Saguenay region. With another 4 seats already or soon to be vacated, several held by opposition MPs, the by-elections could widen the Liberals' majority heading into the fall sitting of Parliament. Tell me this article isn't biased without telling me this article isn't biased. Oh wait, it is biased. Just wait, it gets worse. 2 of the campaigns will be held in safe Liberal ridings. Former Minister Jonathan Wilkinson resigned his BC seat after being appointed Canada's ambassador to the European Union in April, with Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, also a one-time minister, one time for a couple of months, resigned his Toronto seat earlier this month. But Chicoutimi-Lafjord, held by former Conservative MP Richard Martel, since 2018 offers the Liberals a chance to capitalize on Mark Carney's popularity as the Conservatives lag in the polls. Mr. Carney appointed Mr. Martel to the Senate earlier this month. Poll aggregator 338 Canada currently lists the riding as a toss-up between the Liberals, Conservatives, and Bloc Québécois. Chicoutimi-Lafjord, a heavily francophone riding that includes part of the city of Saguenay, has changed allegiances several times over the last 2 decades. It was held by the Bloc from 2004 to 2011, but voted NDP during the Orange Wave and flipped to the Liberals in 2015. Mr. Martel, a well-known hockey coach, was recruited by the Conservatives as a star candidate and claimed the riding in a 2018 by-election. A Liberal win there would signal the party's strength in Quebec, despite Mr. Carney's wobbly French and occasional missteps that have appeared, quote-unquote, out of touch with the province, Mr. Grenier said. Quote, "It's not a Montreal riding, it's not a suburban riding, it's a very francophone nationalist kind of seat," end quote. He added it would be, quote-unquote, another blow to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who has lost 4 MPs who've crossed the floor to join the Liberals since last fall. In April, Mr. Carney secured a majority government when the Liberals swept 3 by-elections, including a tight race in Terrebonne, a suburb of Montreal that had been a Bloc Québécois stronghold. Timeout. We at least say that we're biased on the tin. But this is where it drives us nuts, and it drives Canadians nuts, and this is why Canadians are not subscribing to these media publications anymore. And Bob Fife, who was a senior columnist for the Globe and Mail, and this is where this is from, he admitted it for all to hear that, oh yeah, of course the Ottawa media is biased against the Conservatives. That's not new. That's been going on for a long time. So the fact that the Globe and Mail has the gall to say, oh yeah, there's a bunch of floor crossers, and then says, but Carney secured his majority through 3 by-elections. Really? Really? They don't mention in this article that 2 of those seats were safe Liberal seats. So...
And there was a 1 vote difference, and it actually got overturned judicially because there was an error made. So it was a toss-up.
But even if they had lost the Terrebonne by-election, it still would have been a majority.
Yeah.
So this silliness that they're still trying to pass off that Mark Carney legitimately won his majority through elections is, well, where's Dan? Here he is.
Unmitigated horse pucky.
So at least admit your bias on the tin. But, you know, we never talk about the fact that Mr. Carney is losing his MPs, that they're resigning, that they're leaving, that they're going off to different things, and we're not talking about the fact that Mr. Carney's caucus isn't happy with him and how he conducts himself. But let's just keep talking about Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives.
You know, because he made a joke at a dinner regarding Corey tonight.
Right? And sorry, not you, Carolyn Elliott. Had nothing to do with you.
Right. I don't know why she thought that had anything to do with her. That was just like main character syndrome or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I had nothing against Carolyn Elliott. I still don't have anything against Carolyn Elliott, but
it was just, you're scratching your head going,
why?
Like, what?
Go back and listen to the tape.
Yeah.
So, anyway, as we continue. Those wins brought the Liberals to 174 seats, 2 more than the 172-seat threshold for majority. With the expected departure of former Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault later this summer, the Liberals need to win at least one of the 3 by-elections to retain more than half of the seats in the House of Commons. But other vacancies will work in the Liberals' favour. Former NDP MP Alexandre Boulouris will resign his Montreal riding to run for a provincial seat in the Quebec election this fall. That is expected to remain NDP, just so you know, folks. Saskatchewan Conservative MP Kathy Wagenthal will also step down on August 31st. That is expected to remain Conservative. Meanwhile, another Quebec riding has also been vacated by Bloc MP Simon Pierre Savard Tremblay, who is running for the Parti Québécois in the Quebec election. But Mr. Carney has opted to not yet call a by-election on that riding a fairly safe Bloc seat. There's a reason for that, folks. We're going to get to that soon. If the Liberals delay calling by-elections for the remaining 4 vacant seats until after the Quebec election in October, Mr. Carney said they're setting themselves up to have a wider majority in the fall. Mr. Carney said that Mr. Carney's decision not to call a vote on the other vacant Quebec seat could also give the Liberals an advantage over the Bloc in the Chicoutimi-Lafjord. Parties have a spending limit based on the number of ridings in which they run candidates, but they can spend that money however they like. Okay, so we've talked about this before, but just to remind everybody, this is what happened when there was the 3 by-elections, including Terrebonne. So what election rules allow them to do is for every riding you run a candidate in, your total spend for the election gets bigger. So in this case, the Liberals will be running candidates in 3 different ridings. The Bloc will be running candidates in 1. So the Liberals
they can spend a third of what the Liberals can.
Correct.
Yeah.
And because the Liberals have those other 2 ridings are relatively safe, what the Liberals will be able to do is take money that they wouldn't otherwise need in those other ridings and funnel them into the Quebec riding to overload or attempt to overload the Bloc in that riding. So this is what's going to probably happen here, right? And this is where I don't like the election rules in this case. I don't think that's right. I don't think you should be allowed to do that in by-elections. That doesn't seem fair to me. But you know, there's arguments for, there's arguments against. It's just it's dirty politics, and it puts all of the power in the hands of the Prime Minister, and it takes power away from the actual voters themselves, in my humble opinion. When you're allowed to kind of stack the deck how you choose as the Prime Minister when it comes to those elections, I don't think that's right. I don't care who's in power. It's just it's another way to subvert our democracy, in my humble opinion. So that's what's expected to happen. Now, the good news is that the Conservatives will be running candidates in 3 different ridings, or 3 different ridings as well, 3 different by-elections. So they'll have the same spending limit as the Liberals when it comes to those by-elections. And most likely, they will be diverting all of that money into the Quebec riding as well, I assume.
That's what I was just going to say, is that the other 2 are almost certainly going to be Liberal ridings. So it may be beneficial for the Conservative Party to allocate more or all of the resources that it's permitted to towards the Quebec riding, which right now is a 3-way tie.
So before we get to the what these ridings actually look like, because we are going to show you what the current standings are, we also wanted to get to something. So one of the things that Mark Carney has been doing, and he's continued to do right here in all of these by-elections, is he has continued to not really respect democracy within the Liberal Party of Canada.
Shocker.
And what do I mean by that? Well, let's go here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a nomination announcement for Chicoutimi Lafjord. So they opened the nomination race. So candidates can run against each other to see who's going to be the Liberal candidate for the riding of Chicoutimi Lafjord. Oh, wait. It starts and ends at the same time. So it starts at 4 p.m. on July 24th. And that was a couple days ago. And it ended at July 24th, 4 p.m. What does that mean? It means there was no race. There was an appointment done. So, clearly that's an anomaly, right? Wrong. So this is North Vancouver Capilano. Same thing. So on July 18th, they appointed another Liberal candidate. And this is I believe it was the former chief of staff of Mark Carney, Braden Cayley. So he's going to be the candidate there. And breaking news, the Liberals actually had a nomination race, and it's the first one under Mark Carney in Beaches, East York. Round of applause for Mark Carney. He's actually allowing people to participate in democracy. Sort of. So Tanvir Shanawas wins nomination for federal Liberals in Beaches, East York. So I say kind of because the nomination race was 9 days. There was 5 people who threw their hats in the ring, but 9 days.
That's ridiculous. The Conservative one has to be a minimum of 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's even technically longer than that.
Yeah, maybe.
But
it's in our constitution or whatever it's called.
So when it comes to the Conservatives, you have to be a member for 30 days in order to actually vote for somebody. So this type of nomination race doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because it prevents these candidates from going out and signing people up as new members of the Liberal Party and effectively recruiting voters to their side. So what you would typically expect to happen is the nomination race is announced. You know it's going to be over 30 days until the actual vote on when the EDA is going to be voting on who the Liberal candidate will actually be successful. So you would spend all that time doing a membership drive, trying to get people to sign memberships and buy memberships, and then ideally they all come to the nomination event and then vote for you after you give your final pitch.
Now, keep in mind that Liberal memberships, there's no charge. There's I believe it's a $15 charge for 1 year of a Conservative membership, but there is no charge for Liberal or NDP to my knowledge. And also, it's the party that sets the rules for their nomination races, because this is not an election. Like, this is not the general election where everybody goes and votes for their MP. This is like internal party dynamics. So they are permitted to set the rules however they like.
Right. They could say, if they wanted to, they could say, you know, your cats like Pixel could vote if they if they wanted to, and that would be technically fine. So, ladies and gentlemen, Beaches East York. This is how this looks today. So, Beaches East York is probably going to be safe, right? Now, there's some very encouraging numbers in here, and where are they? The NDP. So the NDP is starting to make a comeback, folks. So they've actually jumped up 9 points. And that has dragged the Liberal vote share down 5%. Now, 5% is significant. And the rest of the NDP came from elsewhere. So you have the NDP actually making a significant gain in Beaches East York. So although the Liberals are going to win the seat, we're interested to see how the NDP actually does. If the NDP gets close to 22%, ladies and gentlemen, that's a very positive sign. What that means is that in a general election, we would expect to see the normal vote split that we would typically see. And that means the left is going to be split into two. And that's good news for the Conservatives.
Right, because I mean, in years past, mid-30s, high 30s, even low 40s has been a majority for the Conservatives.
Right.
And the reason it wasn't this time, or one of the reasons I should say,
is because they obliterated the NDP.
Exactly. Well, I mean, Jagmeet Singh did it to his own party, and the worst part is he didn't even care.
Yeah.
Or at least that's the impression he gave.
Yeah, he decided, let's sign an agreement with the Liberals, but then act like we still have an agreement with the Liberals. And then I'm going to announce that
I ripped up the agreement.
Yeah, and my platform is healthcare. And vote for me because of healthcare.
So bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
It did not pay off for him. Spoiler alert. Anyway, North Vancouver Capilano. So, this is where you see here. And again, some good news here. You see the NDP gaining some support back, so that's some good news. Not really that much of a surprise here, but we are interested to see how far the NDP actually chew into this. And this is Chicoutimi-Lafjord. So this is what you see. This is the way the polls are now. So they are 32% for the Bloc, 31% for the Liberals, and 30% for the CPC. Now, in the article, they're trying to make it seem like, oh, well, you know, the Liberals are coming, the Liberals are coming. But what they don't say is that the trend in the polls, and we've shown this to you before this week, the trend in the polls is actually trending down overall across Canada for the Liberals. So, takes a little bit of journalism, Globe and Mail, so we did it for you. So this is how things looked a few months ago in the same riding. So you had, back in March, the Liberals were actually up to 33%. So they were leading all three parties here. So again, this is how things look today. So they're actually losing ground in Quebec. Meanwhile, the Liberals or the Globe and Mail is trying to say, well, you know, they're gaining strength in Quebec. They're losing strength in this riding, if you want to believe the aggregate polls. So I'm interested less in who wins the seats here. I still want the Conservatives to actually retain that seat, obviously. And if the Conservatives can't have it, I would want the Bloc to take it. But I'm more interested in where are the polls and where are the results right now? And how are the NDP doing? The NDP, according to the aggregate, and we've seen that, they're on an upward climb. That is good news. It's good news for the next election. And it's good news for splitting off the progressive vote from the Liberal Party and bringing it over to the NDP.
Well, and what's going to be very interesting about these three by-elections is that we'll be able to compare what the results are in terms of numbers. Now, by-elections are always fewer people come out to by-elections than they do the general election, generally speaking. And the point, though, is that we'll be able to compare the vote share from these by-elections that are coming up on the 31st of August versus what they were in the general election a year and a half ago. So we can see, you know, are the Liberals falling? Are the Conservatives gaining? Is the Bloc gaining, etc.?
And someone's asking asking the question, can the polls be trusted? This is my point. I'm going to be very interested to see how people actually come out to vote in these elections, especially in that Quebec riding, but also how many NDPers come out to vote for these in these by-elections. So although it's not going to be exciting in terms of, you know, seat flips when it comes to this, we're seeing the polls starting to drip for the Liberals, and I'm fascinated to see what this yields in terms of this these by-elections. And remember, the next 27 days leads us up very close to this August 31st day of the by-election. How Mark Carney does over the next 31 days, or 27 days, actually it's even less now. So how Mark Carney does over the next 25 or so days, it could have a very significant impact on what happens in these by-elections and what happens in that Quebec riding. So stay tuned, folks, because it's going to be a fascinating time. And assuming nothing conflicts, we will be live streaming the results as they come in. So, and I'm interested to see. So Boularice, he was basically the only real French-speaking MP from Quebec, or in the party. That's why there is no French candidates running for the leadership of the NDP. So he's said, I'm going to resign and run for the provincial party. It's still slated to be leaning pretty good NDP. I wonder if Avi is practicing his butt off when it comes to French. Because if he could do it, I would suggest, like, if he's good enough with his French, make yourself the candidate and get your butt in Parliament. That would dramatically increase the profile of the NDP. He gets a salary. He doesn't have to do, hang out in Ottawa like, the homeless guy in front of the in front of the press conference area. So he needs to get a seat. So if he's comfortable enough in his French, maybe that's the way you get it. You end up representing a Quebec riding, but it's on the opposite side of the country from where his home is. We'll see what happens. Anyway, folks, so we'll see what happens. And I think it's going to yield a very interesting glimpse into the current state of Canadian politics and just how far the NDP has come from bottoming out in the 2025 federal election.